Another aspect of equipping new believers to be self-feeders spiritually is to help them understand persecution and suffering and how God has designed those to help us grow in our faith. If we fail to do that, then new believers could be shocked when they begin to face spiritual warfare and opposition and suffering for doing what's right. In Timothy, Paul tells us all who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. We are at odds with an enemy if we're serious about following the Lord, and there will be a price to pay. And if people experience that opposition and they don't expect it, then they're far more prone to discouragement or anger or bitterness or hopelessness. It's far better for them to recognize that this is ordained, this is intended, and this will be used for our good and for God's glory. There are so many passages, whether it's in the writings of Paul, or if it's in Jesus' teaching, or James, or Peter, all of them talk about specific godly character traits that are developed through suffering. We mature through suffering. Also, our faith is increased through suffering. It's purified. We're caused to rely more on the Lord and less on ourselves. There are so many benefits to suffering. We're equipped to minister to others who are undergoing suffering when we suffer. One of the most amazing books, in some ways, on suffering is the book of Hebrews. There's a couple of passages in particular in Hebrews that always surprise me every time I read them. One of them says that Jesus learned obedience by what he suffered. That is amazing to me. Now, it's not that Jesus was ever disobedient, but somehow, in the plan of God, in the purpose of God, he could not be all God wanted him to be or do all God wanted him to do apart from suffering. And if that's true of the perfect Son of God, how much more is it true for us? Another passage is similar. It talks about how Jesus was made perfect by what he suffered. Again, not that he was ever imperfect, but somehow, again, he couldn't be all God wanted him to be or do all God wanted him to do, complete the good works that God had prepared for him apart from suffering. And again, if that's true for him, how much more so for us? There are lots of ways that people can be prepared for persecution and suffering. Just reading the book of 1 Peter is a great start. How you teach this, how you communicate this concept of the value of persecution and suffering is going to be different in each culture, in each society, based on the types of opposition that are commonly experienced. But it needs to happen everywhere, and people need to be ready to joyfully suffer for the sake of the Lord.